We're up to Yerushalmi Peah. We are the sixth parak, and we are parak Shishi Halacha Hey, which is roughly Hey in the Amishkol pages, or Daf Lamed in the old style pages. So we're talking about limiting the size of an omer which becomes shikha. So omer, you've got a sheaf, sheesh by sasayim. Now think about it. It's sasayim, it's 2 sah, this sheaf. It is absolutely massive, right? Some say in the seeds of the crop it's a sign, apart from the straw and everything else and stubble. Now a saw is 144 eggs. So a sign is 288 eggs, which is 29 litres according to Chazon Ish, or 16 litres according to Chaim. It doesn't mean a volume, it means a weight, which Chazal will kaveya. Okay, maybe 46 kilos. Whatever it is. So you've got a massive amount. Shesh bo sasayim, ushachad, you forgot it. Eina shikha. It's not got a din of shikha. We'll see why. Because it's so massive, it's not got a din of shikha. Shnei amorin, if it was 2 sheaves of a head sasayim, and together they made 2 sah, Rav Gamliel over, says labalabais, that as long as it's sasayim, even if it's through 2 sheaves, it's potter from shikha. Chachamim say it goes to the poor, because the Torah only pattered when you have 1 omer being a sasayim, not when it's made up of 2. Rav Gamliel wants to prove his view. Because of the many number of bundles of sheaves, should the balabais be strengthened or weakened? Surely, the more sheaves that are found, it enlarges the power of the balabais that he should keep them and they shouldn't become shikha. I mean, Amrulai, so the Chacham said, Yopikach, yeah, we should strengthen him, right? As we say, that 2 bundles become shikha and 3 is not. So that's what they said. That's what they wanted to say. Well, 2 become shikha, but 3 is not. That's the normal thing, right? 3 Amorim is not shikha. So the Chachamim agreed. So Amar Lahensor and Gamliel said, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to answer back according to your logic. Mine bizmanchu omer echad, if it's 1 omer, both the same shachai, and it's forgotten, eina shikha, it's not shikha. If you're going to say that, shnei avorim, if it's 2, of a head sasayim, 2 bundles making up a sasayim, eina din shlayil shikha. That's what Gamliel says. It shouldn't be shikha. You admitted to me more sheaves. We strengthen the kach the balabais. The Chachamim said no. We got a question against that. Because the when they said 1 sheaf, which is a sasayim, is not shikha, shuhu gadish. It's like a gadish. There's like a stack, and the Torah said, right? It's only chal shikha when it's a sheaf, and not when it's a whole stack. Are you going to say the same with 2 sheaves, which are like little sheaves, right? 2 amorin is like little 2 things. So in this case, you can't start saying, the more sheaves will strengthen the koch balabais. The p'tur sasayim is only because it's like a stack. 2 amorim, 2 sheaves, which is not a sasayim, and each one is not got a din of a stack, even though together it creates 2 sasayim. Now, karwa sheyesh sasayim, if you have some standing grain, which is 2 sah, the shachar, and you forgot it, and you never cut it, ein a shikha. That's also not got a din of shikha. Ein ba sasayim, if you don't have sasayim, but it's fitting, there's enough there that could make. Basically, it was fitting to make 2 sah, right? But basically, some of it got ruined. Let's say some of it got ruined in the wind or whatever, or they didn't grow enough, so they stayed small. But it was fitting to make 2 sah, but you haven't got that now. Afilu he shall toifach, even if it's a sort of grain of pulses, which is like very small granules. You imagine it's this bigger barley, sort of big coarse stuff. So basically, if the kama is tavua, where the pips, usually they will grow, but for some of the wind ruined it, whatever, it got a bit parched, and therefore everything was a bit weakened, we treat it as if it was proper, full. And if it's, let's say, total, something where the seeds, the pips are very small, we imagine it's as if they're much bigger. Okay? That's how one shall interpret this. Others say, look, we're not going to treat it as if it's something else. But the Mishnah is telling you 1 din. Let's say if it's barley, even if it's a bit wind parched, therefore the seeds are small, we treat it as if it's a big thing of barley. That's how others want to say. All right. Is the logic? Because it's not it is what it is. It had a potential to grow to this size. the fact that he didn't, but it had that potential. Rav Elazar said, Ksiv says, you cut your reapings in the field, and of course you mustn't go back. You mustn't go back. The Omer that you can go and stretch your hand and take it in one go. Now if it's too sar, it's massive. You can't start taking it. Some say you forget a sheaf, but not when if it's a whole mound. And if it's too sar, it's called a gadish. Hey Chavida, what's the case here? Where's the nafkamina between the drushes? If you forget one omer of less than sasayim, b'tzidai, next to a sheaf which has just 2 sar. Yeah, so you forgot one sheaf, small, next to a big omer of 2 sar. In Tabdina, if we treat the 2 sar as omer, as a sheaf, and we putter it from shikha, because you can't just reach your hand and get it because it's too big, then Divrei HaKol, whether Beisham Beis Hillel, the omer next to it is shikha, because that's not next to a godish, it's an omer, it's one sheaf next to another sheaf. Okay, one sheaf has got an exemption, because it's massive, you can't go and take it, but the other sheaf is going to become shikha. But in Tabdine, but if you treat godish, if we treat the two sar as a stack, then the small one will be a machlokes Beisham Beis Hillel. There's machlokes on Daf Nun Beis we had, where you have a sheaf next to a stack. According to Beis Shammai, it's not considered shikha, and according to Beis Hillel, it is considered shikha. So that's one nafkamina. That if we treat it as a stack, then the one next to it is machlokes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. And another nafkamina between the drashas, shachach shnei amarim b'tzida. If you forgot 2 other sheaves next to the one which is 2 sar. In Tabdine, if we treat the one of 2 sars as an omer, just like the sheaf, but it's got a special exemption, then machlokes Beisham Beis Hillel. There'll be that argument, because the big one is called a sheaf, and then we have 2 others next to it. Now both sides, 2 and 1 make 3. 3 sheaves, according to Beis Hillel, is a row, which is potter from shikha. According to Beis Shammai, that's not a shura, which is potter. Whereas in Tabdina, if we treat that sheaf of 2 sar as a stack, as a godish, then even according to Beis Hillel, the others ain't nidon kashor. They're not treated as a row, because we don't have 3 sheaves. We have 1 stack and 2 sheaves. So it doesn't consider it a row, and therefore you don't have the exemption of shikha. Now we also learn, kama sheyesh bo sasayim, if it's 2 sar and shikha, and it's not shikha. So we bring a source from a pasuk that 2 sar is an exemption with kama if it's still growing as well. The Torah compares getting that which is growing, basoda, to the sheaves where it says v'shachachta omer. So we learn the hekesh omer sheyesh bo sasayim v'shacha eina shikha. If it's 2 sar, it doesn't become shikha. So also kama sheyesh bo sasayim, a kama which has got 2 sar, and you forgot it, eina shacha eina shikha, it's not going to shikha. Okay. Now we said if it's fitting to make sasayim, afilu hishal topah, when it's very small, you imagine it's bigger. Oh, Rabbi Yosef, about shibalin, that's the shibalin, the years in the kama which was forgotten. And the Mishnah says, Hayu yudakos, if they were very short, ronos and kilei arukas, imagine they're taller. Shuduvos, if they were like parched by the wind, therefore they're weak, ronos and kilei malayas. You imagine they were much bigger, right? And if we can work out you had 2 sar, if they were long, it would be like 2 sar, and it would not become shikha, despite the fact that because they're short, you don't have a sasayim. But if you don't have the shibalim at all, it's just like straw, we don't treat that as if it's kama, which has got 2 sar or pips and so on, seeds and so on. So it's got to be the right material there. Okay. He says, I mean, if it's straw, it's not fitting for anything. Even if it's not 2 sar, actually what it is, the straw is not fitting for people to eat. You give it to your animals. Even without sasayim, it shouldn't be shikha. That's what they ask. So it's got nothing to do with food. So I know. Alright. Let's carry on. Kama matzela sasayim. So you've got a growing crop which has not been forgotten. Matzela sasayim, it saves the sheaf which was forgotten next to it. There's a kama and another growing area which was forgotten next to it from becoming shikha. So one kama saves the other kama. But a sheaf which is not forgotten, it doesn't save another omer next to it. No, nor does it save anything which is standing which you've not cut yet from becoming shikha. When is a standing grain saving one sheaf? Whatever is not becoming shikha, even it's sort of one stalk. So it's not, if that comma is not shikha, even if it's very small. But the Mishnah's Lashon here, one klach, one stalk is enough to save another omer or another comma from becoming shikha. Okay, let's carry on. Sar tavur akura, or sar shein akura. So this is the Torah of two sars, we said. So if you have one sar of grain which has been uprooted already, and one sar of grain shein akura, which is not yet been uprooted, and they're close together and you forgot them. You've got a sar of fruit which is detached, which is next to a tree which has fruit on, and you forgot them. And shubba basalim, the onions, garlic, you forgot a sar of this and a sar of that. Eina misarfin, they don't join up for this two sar exemption from shikha. So each of them has din shikha and it goes to the poor. Rabbi Yossi says, if there is a monetary involvement with the poor person between that which is mechuba and tolish, let's say some other stuff in the middle. Let's say you've got leket between that which is connected to the ground and that which is detached. So an oni has a share of something in the middle between this and that. Or in a vineyard, let's say there's parrot in the middle, so the oni has a share of the middle stuff. Then aim misarif, and the two outer ones don't join up. Being love, if there's no monetary elements from the poor person in the middle, like in the fruit of the tree, then there's no lack of bread, then hare'ela misarfin, then they do join up. So we're saying this idea, Rabbi Yossi wants to say if the poor person's got a share in the middle, then it breaks them up. Okay. The idea of the garlic and the onions, they might join up even if either they're both connected to the ground or they're both detached. You might have thought only grain that mechuba and tolish wouldn't have joined up. This is comma, that's omer. But when fruit of a tree are called fruit, it's one min, they join up. The Mishnah says even fruits of a tree don't join up in certain cases. Okay. Right, let's carry on. Rabbi said, the word ketzircha, v'shachachta omer, it's not shikha unless omer shesvivoisav kotze, where everything else around it has been cut. And not a sheaf where around it things are still growing. So it will save it from shikha. Why is it that omer, one sheaf, where everything else is other sheaves which are not forgotten, they become shikha, but the omerim which are not forgotten, next to it, save it. So let's see this again. That the ones which are the sheaves around it are not forgotten, then this can become shikha. And we don't say the ones not forgot, save it. Now, if you have a sheaf which is next to a comma, a grain which is growing, then it doesn't become shikha. The comma saves it. And surely, katzir, right, is tavor which is cut, which you didn't gather it for the sheaves. Once you gather the sheaves, it's called omarim, it's not katzir. So just like around it is katzir, we're mamayit omer which is surrounded by comma, we should be mamayit and omer which is surrounded by other sheaves as well. It shouldn't become shikha, because the other sheaves around it should save it. It shouldn't become shikha unless it's all cut stuff which has not been gathered into sheaves. So the Gemara answers, when there's other sheaves around it which are not forgotten, Masha Tachtav, under the omer which is forgotten, is called Sodeh. It's called a field and it becomes shikha. It's omer basodeh. The Torah says it becomes shikha. The ones surrounding it don't save it from becoming shikha. But omer shesvivosav kama, when you've got the growing grain around it, which is not forgotten, then Masha Tachtav, then that which is under the omer, which we've forgotten, is called kachin. It's called like comma, really. It's not called a field, it's called standing grain. Right, this omer next to the standing grain, we're saying that surrounding this sheaf here, this sheaf is not called a field, it's called standing grain. And therefore it's not omer basodeh. and therefore it's excluded from shikha because the comma next to it saves it. Tanu letter Vaisa, kamas chaverai matzeles shaloi. So, kamas chaverai, even your friend's stack, your friend's growing grain, which has not been forgotten, saves yours, which is next to it, from becoming shikha. Shall guy, comma of a guy, matzeles, as shall Israel, will save a Jewish person's stack of grain. Shall chitin, wheat, which is not forgotten, matzeles, shall sa'irin, saves barley. Rebbe. Harav says, Eina matzeles, ela shalai. No, it's only your stuff can save your stuff. Eina matzeles, maybe not, it's got to be the same type of grain, but not another type of grain. Okay. The Chachamim darshan, besadecha, whatever, the owner of the Omer, the comma saves, but not in a comma belonging to someone else. Right? And the fact that the comma and the Omer have forgotten are from one min, and the stam, a field, is a ruah kula, but usually it's the same min. Usually you always have the same. Okay. We said growing stuff which is not forgotten saves another sheaf or another comma which is next to it. But a sheaf itself doesn't save. So the Gemara brings a brisa which has got various opinions about this. He said, the comma, that which is growing, saves the omer. He says the other way around as well. And it makes sense. Because the comma, the growing grain, where the poor man has got more strength. They've got leket, shikha, peah out of this. That saves the sheaf next to it from becoming shikha. So Omer, one single branch, the Omer shahura ba kacha ani, where the poor person has less rights. He only has shikha, that's all, and not everything is always forgotten. He doesn't get automatic pay or whatever it is. Einodin sheyatzilas hakama. So how much more so it should be saved from? It should save the comma. This is what he wants to say, that the sheaf should save the comma as well. That's what this opinion holds. Amalai Rabbi said back to Shimon Gamliel. He said, now, what gifts have we got here? Yeah, Mala Kama, it's all very well the growing stuff. Matzela saves the sheaf. Shahura Kacha Anibai, because the poor man has less rights in what is being saved. Right? In that which is being saved, the sheaf being saved. He has no leket, he has no peah, he has less rights. So when it's forgotten next to the comma saves it from the poor person, that the poor person does not get it. It does not become shikha. As opposed to what you want to say, Yasil Omer es hakama, you want your sheaf to save the comma, sheyupa kacha aniba, where the comma, that which is standing, growing, the poor man has much more rights. Right? He's got zchus in the leket, he's got zchus in the peah. And since he has many more rights, maybe he's not going to be saved by the sheaf next to it. From Shimon Gamliel and Rabbi, we can learn that one omer which is forgotten can be saved by another omer which is not forgotten next to it. So maybe one omer can save one omer, because you can't say he's got less kayach, the poor people are less kayach or not. It's the same thing, right? A sheaf to a sheaf. So they have the same rights in that. But one connected to the ground, which is forgotten, according to these opinions, Rabbi and Shimon Gamliel, is not going to be saved by another comma, which is not forgotten. And they argue in cases through our Mishnah, which learns that Omer is not matzah even another Omer. The comma is, one second, this again. So a comma which is forgotten is not saved through another comma. They are arguing basically in two cases on our Mishnah. Right, we said Omer doesn't save another Omer, and they say it does. And we said a comma saves a comma, and they're saying it doesn't. You hear that? So according to Rabbi and Shimon Gamliel, Omer saves an Omer, which we didn't say that in our Mishnah, and a comma doesn't save a comma, and we said the opposite in our Mishnah. Okay. Now our Mishnah said any comma which is not shikha saves the Omer, saves the sheep next to it. Now the lashon of the Mishnah is mashma, a comma, a growing grain, which is not shikha, saves. Ha'im shacha. If you forgot that growing grain, then the omer next to it gets the din of shikha. Now, surely, We're excluding a case, let's say now, when did you forget the growing grain? Did you forget it and then you forgot the Omer, or did you forget the Omer first? So surely, even in a case where you forgot the comma after you already forgot the sheaf, right? It might be a case where you forgot the comma later. You hear that? You got growing grain, you got a sheaf, and now usually we say, well, the growing grain helps the sheaf. But this growing grain got forgotten, and then it might not help the sheaf. But when did it get forgotten? Did you forget the sheaf first? Or did you forget the growing grain first? So usually you'd think you might have forgotten the growing grain after you forgot the sheaf. Now in the beginning, when you forgot the sheaf, the comma was not yet forgotten, and it saved it. So we can work out from our Mishnah a doubt which we had earlier on. If an Omer which was saved once, remember this question? It was saved once from Shikha, and then you forgot that which saves it, does it become Shikha again or not? Here's Mochach, it seems to become Shikha again, because we think the case is you forgot the Omer, then you forgot the Comma, and now the Shikha again. Tifta, you could explain the Mishnah is going to exclude a case the Omer is not saved, maybe you forgot the growing grain first. It's not that first you forgot the Omer, then the grain. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe you forgot the growing one first. And it comes out that the comma never saved this sheaf because you'd forgotten it first. Therefore, when you forget the Omer, it becomes Shikha. But in a situation where you forgot the Omer first, and it was saved through the comma, and then you forgot the comma later on, maybe the Omer does not become Shikha in such a case, because anything which is saved in the beginning maybe will never become Shikha later. And since it's possible that that's the pshat in the Mishnah, therefore we can't work out our question. You hear that? So we wanted to try and work out, can something become Shikha again? But it could be a case where you forgot the comma first, so it was always forgotten from the beginning. We learned in our Mishnah that a sar of Tavur which is uprooted and a sar which is not uprooted, they don't join up for the two sar exemption. Now, it sounds like a sar of Tavur is connected to the ground and sar of Tavur is detached, are not joining up. If they were both detached, each sar was detached. You forgot two sheaves, tolush, each one is a sar. They join up for this two sar exemption to be parted from Shikha, the balabais. So what we say, so it sounds like if they're both, if they are both akura, so they're both detached, then the balabais gets it. Masechet says that is like the view of Rabbi Gamliel, who he says you can have two sheaves joining up for a sasayim, right? To be exempt from Shikha. Okay, it doesn't have to be one massive one, it can be two as well. That was Rabbi Gamliel's view of the Mishnah. Now we continue to talk about a sar of Tavur which is uprooted and a sar which is not uprooted don't join up. So we think it's talking about a case you forgot first the detached one and then you forgot the one connected. So v'tatsil akura she'ena akura. Let the one which is not uprooted, the comma, save the other one which is uprooted. Because in the beginning, when you forgot the Omer, the comma saved it. It wasn't forgotten yet. If something was saved once from Shikha and it never becomes Shikha ever, then the saving shouldn't stop from the Omer, even if afterwards you forgot the comma, that saving should still be there. Why does the Mishnah say they don't join up? It sounds like they're both Shikha. He says you have to say Hadar Amra. Now Mishnah is Mochach that Dava should roy lahatzil. Something can save others from Shikha. But then Ushachai, and then you forgot that which saves. You hear? You forgot the thing which saves the others. Habrehu Shikha. That thing which is saved first becomes Shikha. So the Mishnah says the Kama and the Omer become Shikha. So basically we can work out from our Mishnah, the suffix which we had, is something was saved once, and it starts becoming Shikha, and then you forgot that which saves it. Does it become Shikha again? Again, the same story we had before. If you forget something once, but it got saved, but then now the thing which saves it is no longer here, does it become Shikha a second time? So you want to say maybe this is the case here, that you got Akura and Ein Akura, and if that which is saved first from Shikha never became Shikha, then the saving of the Omer shouldn't help even if afterwards you forget the comma as well. Why does the Mishnah say they don't join up? So Amar Rabbi Yonah said Tiftar again. We can talk about a Mishnah in a case where B'kosa Shura Ma'ameh Shura. You are cutting first the whole row. After you complete the cutting, you go back to the beginning and you make, you go back to all that which you've cut, and you make Omrim sheaves, and you gather them. You hear that? So you've sort of cut the whole row, and then you come back and start gathering everything. So therefore, Kvar shachach esakoma ad shelo shachach esamorim. Now, so what's happened here? You've already forgotten that which is growing before you forgot the actual individual sheaves. He says the comma you forgot at the time of cutting, the sheaves you forgot after you cut the whole thing, and you made a lot of sheaves. So the comma never saved these sheaves. Only a comma which was not forgotten, that's going to help and save, right? When it's not forgotten itself. But not a comma which itself is becoming forgotten. You know that. A comma which is not forgotten can save, right? A comma which is forgotten can't save. So there's no raya that something which was saved once became shikha when you forget it, when you forget that which causes the saving. It could be the reason here, that the reason why the tolush is shikha because it would never got saved. Should I say that again? Should I say that last paragraph again? So what's Rabbi Yonah coming along? We wanted to bring the question about, if something got forgot. Yeah? Something got forgot. But it got saved by something else. But then, you forgot that which saves. You hear that? You forgot that which saves. You forgot the Dava Hamatzil. So we were asking, so we had a question now. If you forget that which saves, the original item, does that become shikha again or not? That was the question we had. So Rabbi Yonah wants to say that the case where you're cutting here, it could be a case, we wanted to prove that maybe this is the case here, we can prove this. But then the Gemara wants to say, no, this wasn't a case where the comma ever saved these sheaves, right? A comma which is not forgotten can save, but if itself is forgotten, it can't save. There's no raya over here. It could be, it was never saved. It could be you forgot the comma first. That's what we're saying. This sheaf was never saved from the comma because you forgot the comma first. We don't know that you forgot it later. Could be you forgot the comma first. Okay. In Basa Rishus La'ani, now Rabbi Yossi said, if you have leket or peret, which is money belonging to the poor, in the middle between your one sar talosh, one sar mechuba, and Ani has stuff in the middle, they don't join up. But if not, they join up. What does Rabbi Yossi mean? Does he mean a sar talosh, sar mechuba, join up to two sar, and shatava and mamash? You need money of the poor in between. You've got to find shibolim or leket, things of belonging, or peret, things belonging to the poor. You actually have to have leket there. I feel nearest lahavi. Even if it's fitting, you could bring it there. Now there's nothing there, but you could bring it there. Therefore, they don't join up. Let's say you've got a tavua, which is not forgotten, but a bit of leket will fall out of it. You hear that? You've got some grain in the middle, and a bit of leket will probably fall. Or you've got grapes where they're not forgotten, but you'll get a bit of peret there. So maybe the ability that probably the poor person will get something out of it. Let's learn the suffix of this brisa, where Rabbi Yossi gives examples that Talosh and Mechuba don't join up as a sign because the poor person's got a reshus in the middle. Kigai, what's the example he gives? Tavua grain, kerem a vineyard, which had leket or peret. Now kerem, a vineyard, le'ala sahu. There's no peret straight away. You don't usually find these little grapes as soon as you start cutting. And yet he says a kerem, the poor person has reshus in there. How is that? Must be. Hadar Amra, this tells me, I feel a nearest lover. Even though it's fitting to come amongst that which is detached, you will find there's a comma or vines which are not forgotten. You will get leket there eventually. You will get peret there eventually. Right? Therefore, they don't join up and they split up the two some. You follow? So that's what we said. That really they don't have to have actual physical leket in between, but if it's a period of some parts of ground where there's crops there, and you will eventually get peret. You will eventually get leket. That's enough to split up the two, and you don't have two start in one place. Okay? Right. Let's see. The comma which is not forgotten doesn't save another comma, neither. Okay, right, let's move on. Tabua shenitenes lashachas. How are we doing? Right. You cut something for animal food. It's not ripened yet. It's still moist, and you cut it for animal food. Oila aluma, to gather other crops which you gathered into sheaves. You're not really going to make this into a sheaf. You're using it to tie up other things. The various garlics which you gather it to guard, to tie up other garlics. Various bunches of garlic and onions which you're going to gather them to bigger strings of it, or gatherings. There's no shikha in such a case. Why? You're not gathering them for their gemar meleches imuran. This is not your final status sheaves that you're going to keep them on. This is like an interim process. You follow? This is an interim process, and therefore you're still going to make the agudas bigger later on. You're going to have the bigger mounds later on, and shikha is only at the time of the final gathering, right, to the area which is the final sheaf processing. But this is an interim stage. Therefore, there's no shikha. Anything which is hidden in the ground. You go in haluf, type of onion. The garlic and the onions, where some of it grows under the ground. Is that right? Yeah? Some of it grows under the ground. Rabbi Yehuda says, Ein lahen shikha. So anything hidden in the ground, there's no shikha. Right? It doesn't apply to tamun. Chacham said, yes, it does. Shikha applies to that which is hidden as well. Okay. So some of the food maybe grows within the ground. Okay. It's considered tamun. Now the leaves might grow above the ground. But it's considered tamun because you follow the main part of the vegetable. And that is hidden on the ground. Okay. Now shikha usually, because of another reason, is not shikha. But the Hatzmana causes them to be forgotten. They're always hidden. You should have realized, as the Chaim said, we should have realized that. Alright, let's see. Rav Yaina. Is that where we are? Yep. Well, did we do Chachamim shikha, right? So Chachamim argue, they say it does have a din shikha. And Rabbi Yehuda said ain't len shikha. Okay, Rav Yaina. Lo seif davar nidna. Not only the tvua, which has already been given to the animals, there's no shikha. You cut it in order to give to the animal. You've not given it yet. There's no din shikha. And anything which is hidden, Rabbi Yehuda said no shikha. Chaim said there is shikha. Tamad zanidan. We've learned tamadlik is agadish. You light a stack. They were hidden vessels. They got burnt with the whole thing. Rabbi Yehuda, you got to pay for everything. Whatever's inside the stack which you burnt, you have to pay. And the Chachamim said, you only have to pay. Imagine it's a stack of wheat or a stack of barley. You don't have to assume anything else was in there. Right? The volume of that stack, whatever, that's it. You don't have to pay for any vessels that got broken, which you didn't think would be there. We have a contradiction. With fire, he says, we learn from the word psukim to include that which is hidden, that is included, that the Chayav, the Maveh, has to pay for his damages. With shikha, we say, we exclude that which is hidden, which is not included in the din in the parasha, and that shikha does not apply to tamun. Why don't we darshan it the same in the two places? So with fire, we say, l'rabos is a tamun, yeah, that you have to pay for things which are hidden according to Yehuda. And with shikha, we say you're excluded with that which is hidden. Taman, so the Gemara answers, with fire, when the Torah says the fire goes out, but nechal gadish ayakama, and the sack gets consumed, then you have to pay. Mimashma shenema kama, now it says kama b'chin, and yodin shegadish b'kal, gadish and kama the same thing. Of course you're chayev. The Torah chayev on burning a kama of tvua, which is growing grain. Why the fact that you cut it and you made a stack? Why should it be any different? To include things hidden in there, you have to pay for them, right? We're not learning asoda just on the final might. So we're saying asoda is that which is enclosed, which is open. Anything, it's got to be double goloi, not something which is hidden. So matav leva godish, the rabbis is a tamun. You are chayiv on things which are in the stack. But here, as far as shikha says, sadecha, your field, begaloi, it's got to be open. Anything which is something which is open. Perad letamon, shikha does not apply to things which are hidden. Okay, and since with shikha there was no riboy to take out the drasha, therefore tamon is excluded. So Yehuda doesn't darshan it the same way in the two places. He holds sada excludes money unless there's a riboy to include it. With Aish, with fire, you have a riboy, but not with shikha. Now they want to ask the stira in the words of the Chachamim who argue in Yehuda. But she does it Rabbanon. You got a contradiction of Rabbanon. Taman. With fire, in an Amrin, they say Pradla Taman. To exclude Taman is not included in the Pasha. You're not hired to pay for that which is hidden. But with Shikha, in an Amrin, they say Le Rabbis is a Taman. It's included in the din of the Pasha. The Shikha applies with it. Why don't they darshan it the same in the two places? So one answers, Taman, over there, with Aish, it says the Gadish is eaten up. Ayah kama, ayah sadeh. And the Chachamim learn, ma sadeh begaloi, right, a field is open, avkal damage shugala. Anything which is open, you have to pay for your damages to exclude Taman. But as far as Shikha is concerned, the Chachamim hold, there's two miyutim. It says sadecha, which is begaloi, which is open, and pradla Taman. Okay, that will exclude something which is hidden from having din Shikha. And then it says kesircha, begaloi, which is open. Again, Pradla Taman to exclude that which is closed and hidden. Have a mir tachamirt, ella, the rabbi says Taman. So he comes to include that which is hidden. It's a cloud that any mir tachamirt is a riboy. Okay, so that's why they want to learn that it's a riboy, therefore that you are chayav shikha on that which is hidden. Okay, ha'koitzev elayla, one who cuts at night. Okay, and therefore when you cut at night, what might happen? You might miss things. You're gathering at night the various sheaves from the field. Or someone who's blind, who's cutting day or night. Yesh lo shikha. The din shikha is there, that which you forget. Yes, there is din shikha there. If the cutter, the gatherer, was trying to take the shibalim, the big ones, and leave the small ones, there's no din shikha what's left behind. So if he wanted to try and take the big ones, there's no din shikha. Whether it's the big ones he left behind or the small ones. They just this note here. He says the people take on. The reason why the small ones you leave behind is not shikha, it's not shikha when you leave it intentionally. Maybe you realise you can't see everything, you'll come back for it. Yeah.
Take the big stuff.
It's night time, now I'll do the easy stuff, I'll come back tomorrow for everything else. As far as the big ones, you wanted to take them, but you still left some behind without realising. So they're not shikha. Why? You'll come back and see them. When you take the small ones, you'll come back and take the big ones, right? Or you left them by mistake, you thought they were small. And therefore they're shikha because of another reason, therefore they're not considered a din of shikha. Some say this is only at night time or someone who's blind. But if you're clever and you can see in the day, look, you wouldn't make a mistake. If you leave behind big ones, then maybe it's shikha. And some say no, even by that you'll make a mistake and it's not considered shikha. Now also the idea of taking the big ones, leaving the small ones, this is katsira, it's shloika derech. The Torah says the way people cut, not if you're cutting unusually. And that's with a clever person in the day. Some say the dinner's at night, okay. And also shikha is only when you want to finish now the whole cutting. But here you're only taking the big ones, you're not finishing it. So therefore it's not got a din of shikha in such a case. Okay. So what we got here? Eile shikha. If a person says, I'm cutting on condition, wherever I forget, I'll come back and take. Yesh lo shikha, then shikha is cha. Kine masnisa. So what does it mean? You're cutting at night. Yesh lo shikha. Kine masnisa. This is how you explain the Mishnah. You're cutting at night, gathering everything at night. But suba and a blind person, day or night, there is a din shikha. He wants to take the big ones, and then I'll come back. It's not shikha. I'll rub you now. Not just the shibalim, which are big. You left them, they're not shikha. And I feel a dakin, even the smaller ones. So you can distinguish between the big ones and small ones. You want to take the big ones now. Even the small ones, shikha does not apply. Maybe says already why I forget, I'll come back and take. Yes, there is shikha there. Why? He's made a condition that it shouldn't be chal, but the Torah says shikha is chal. Tonight, bottle. You make a condition against the Torah, it does not help. Right? Make a condition against the Torah, the tonight is bottle. Okay. Let's see over here. Okay, how are we doing? Oh, let's carry on. Kol eitz zayis. Kol zayis. Sheyesh lo shem basada. Right, okay, new topic now. We're talking about shikha with olive trees. If you have the famous olive tree, everyone knows that famous tree.
Oh yes, of course.
You remember in down south, there's a town called Seven Oaks.
Seven Oaks, yeah.
There used to be seven oaks.
Yeah.
7 oak trees. They don't have them all anymore. Some came down in the big storms. But usually the town is called 7 Oaks. So Kol Zayis Shesh Le Shem Basodeh. Everyone knows it's different from the other trees. Afilo Kezayis Hanatuva B'Shatay. Even like an olive tree, which is so famous because the way the oil comes from the olives. Even though it's not regular, it might be small amounts, but it's the way it happens. Or Shachai, and you forgot to take it. You're allowed to go back. When do we say that? Bishmoi, when it's known by its name. It's got a special name. Of a masav, or it's known by different from other trees with its detail. Of Imkomai, because of its place. Bishmoi, what does it mean its name? Shoyesh Shafchani Baishani. It was called either Shafchani Baishani. Now Baishani might mean it embarrasses all the others. Right? It's to do with the quality of the oil, right? Or shafchani, it sort of pours out. The masav, sure, sahaba produces a lot. Bimkomai, sho'aymed b'sala gas is next to the olive press, b'sala pirson near the breach over there. So it's in a specific place, one tree in that place, and therefore that's not considered forgotten, right? Okay. Ushakol azeisim, the other olive trees. Shnayim, if you forgot 2 or 1, haritz shikha. Shlosha, 3 olive trees, and on shikha is not shikha. Rabbi Yossi ever says, "En shikha zeisim." There's no such thing as shikha for olive trees. Oh, sees it says v'shachachta omer basada. Sounds like omer, the sheaves. Shachta sheichel olive. You always forget them. Yod says there. This one has got a specific name. Shat zoichel achazman. You always is so unique. You're going to remember it. That's not forgotten. Rabbi Yirmiyah, he says, "Hayam asuyam." If you had your special tree, the owner knew about it. He felt it was special. But no one else paid any attention to it. It's as if it's specialized for everyone. No dinchikha. If the tree is standing next to a date palm tree, hadekel mesaimai. The date palm, so a tree, another tree, is standing next to a date palm. Dekel is also special, right? It's unique. No din shikha. That's like a tree next to the olive press or the ditch, whatever the periods are. So a date palm also, any tree next to it, no shikha. Now 2 trees next to each other, hayu shnei and netufa. If they were both, netufa we said was the way the oil comes out or something like that. So if there were 2 trees next to each other, zem, each one gives importance to the next one, and there's no din shikha. The Mepharshim have a problem with this Gemara because each one on its own is not shikha. If they're producing this special oil, we've just said each tree is not shikha. So what does it mean 2 trees next to each other which are dripping oil? So he says if they're both dripping, each one on its own, even if it doesn't have to be next to another one. Because some say the Gemara is talking about a case where you start getting the oil out of the trees, and with Saladin there would be shikha, as we're going to see later on. There is a stage where you start, there is some process involved. Rav Yirmiyah says when the 2 trees on the tufa, we'll see, are next to each other, there's no din shikha, even though you start taking the oil out. You're definitely not going to forget these 2 trees. We'll see about that a bit later on. Okay. Yeah, okay. Some say the decal we said about the date palm is the same with other trees. Others say no, especially a date palm is unique, different from other trees in its beauty. Okay, so what have we got here? If the whole field, and you stopped taking the oil, let's say, from one tree, but the whole field is like trees like that. Has it got a din shikha? Do we say since it's natufa, it's not no din shikha, as we'll see, or maybe each of the trees are from this min, and why is that one more important than the others? Maybe there is shikha. Nishmeina min hada. We learn from the following. Rabbi Yossi says, "Ein shikha lezeisim." That's it. Olive trees, no shikha. Rabbi Yossi didn't say this. Said a Bereshit in the beginning. There was no olives around. Adrianus Harasha Hadrian came. The Hachriv is kind of destroyed the land. Now there's very common to find olive trees. Rabbi Yossi agrees. Yesh lahem shikha. So there was like a time when there was hardly any olive trees. So then they were unique. They were special. But now they've all grown back again. So according to this, the Tanakhama and Rabbi Yossi argue about a stem olive tree in the time when it was very rare to find olive trees. So according to Rabbi Yossi, they were important. He's got a din like Natufa, there's no din shikha, even though there's nothing special about that tree from any other trees. According to the Tanakhama, they're all the same, not special at all, shikha applies. And the same thing with the fields, which is all Natufa nowadays, they're all dripping with oil. According to the Tanakhama, shikha will apply. Okay,